Sadie. I met you many years ago when you came to class, and I was absolutely thrilled when I saw that you were going to do the Jivamukti teacher training. It was a real surprise. Why had you decided to do the teacher training?
So I think things just happen sometimes for a reason. It was just like the right time in my life. I mean, I had done Jivamukti. I think my sister brought me to your class about 15 years ago. And I always did Stuart Gilchrist's class. And I always loved it because I love the fact that you were, for me, it felt really spiritual. And the fact that you're kind of doing, intentions and mantras and meditation. It was just so implanted in me. And then I kind of went off and kind of did other things, but I kept being pulled back to it. And I've always been a vegetarian and really kind of worried about the planet and all these kind of things, and like the activist side of Jivamukti was very important. But I was kind of being drawn to it, but my life just took me in a different direction. And then I got a call from somebody I'd met in India on a retreat, and he'd said, why didn't you come and do the teacher training, this opportunity? And it just worked. I was in Malta, I was near Italy, I had a month off work, and it was like it'd been handed to me spiritually, and I needed something else. My life felt quite empty. I felt like I was searching for something deeper. And I thought, like, even if I'm not going to teach, I needed to make a spiritual commitment. And I thought the only way to kind of maybe take me on into a deeper journey would be to do the teacher training.
Yeah. I mean, I find the method, or at least teaching the method, a little bit like an onion because there's so many layers to it. So for people that really enjoy the practice, always think, oh, when you start teaching it, it takes a long time to think about chanting, putting a Dharma talk together, assisting, sequencing music. There's just so many layers to it. But how has your teaching or yoga practice changed since you've done that teacher training?
So one thing I just want to say as well, like the one thing about Jivamukti, which is amazing and consistent, is that anywhere you go in the world, you can kind of look up a Jivamukti class and you just feel like you're straight into it. And, before it'd be like when you're younger, you're looking up maybe a bar or club scene or whatever. And then as you kind of evolve as a person or you discover this, for me, it would be like I'd be discovering different Jivamukti teachers all over the world. And that would be like a really kind of amazing support system. And it's something you have with you for the rest of your life. But since so when I did the actual teacher training, it's very, very overwhelming. And, being a bit older was like a big commitment because I thought there's people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And I was like, oh, why am I doing this? But I was doing it for me. And also I felt like I saw how it changed my kids' lives when I was teaching them yoga, and a lot of my kids, their friends. So I saw how amazing it was with mental health and really giving people kind of strength of mind and just helping them through anxiety and depression. So I thought, if I could learn this and I could get a proper kind of teacher training practice to help other people, it would really benefit me and lots of other people. So the actual teacher training is overwhelming. I couldn't believe that I'd actually done it. I was having quite a few meltdowns. The people who ran it were amazing. All the people on the course were amazing. I got so much from it. But now what I have is, I have a really personal, deep practice. It is so important for me to practice every day. And the meditation part is really important for me, and the pranayama. Like before, when I was younger, I just thought, oh, it's just about the movement. It's about the handstands, the headstands. I loved all the gymnastics of it. But the more I'm practicing, I realize it's everything together. And I love the kind of the Yoga Sutras, all the yoga philosophy, Indian philosophy. I've been studying lots of different courses. So now, with everything that I've learned on the Jivamukti method, I'm just on this kind of journey and learning more and more and more. And I've been teaching. I did a retreat with Deepak Chopra where I taught yoga after his meditation. I've done a couple of retreats in it's a fasting, juicing place, which kind of has people there that are not very well. So to actually teach yoga to people who have been struggling and not very well, just feels amazing. You're giving something to people and you see them uplifted. And then I'm working with vulnerable children, teaching them yoga and meditation in North London. So for me, it's just given me that kind of inspiration to do something special with it and different.
And to be of service.
to be of service, you know. And the thing is, I was feeling like, you know, you go through your life and you have all whatever happens, and these things happen and those things happen, and bring up kids or your career, and then I just felt like there has to be more. There has to be something that is going to make me happy. What is going to make me feel contented? What's going to kind of show me the light? And I've always been a spiritual person, but I kind of was stopping and starting, whereas this has kind of opened up some, you know, big doors for me. And, you know, and the fact that you can be mentored by people like you and coming to your class is just like, I mean, I hate missing it. I just love coming. Like, if I could come every day, I would. And, you know, looking forward to doing retreats with you and maybe coming back on the teacher training next year. I think you can go and do as much teacher training as you want and just learn, because it's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Exactly. And the intention, like you're saying, like now that you have an intention and a purpose, it all feels a lot more fuller and complete. And that's how I feel with Jivamukti. I remember the first class I went to, I was in New York, and I think I'd had a row with my mother, and she'll kill me for saying that. And we had to set the intention and give it up to someone at the start of the practice, and then chant Loka, Samastas, Sukhino Bhavantu. And it just kind of neutralized any feeling, and it took it away from me and my problems. And then that kind of offering was so powerful. And that's for me the thing with Jivamukti, and also teaching. So no matter what's going on in my head, when I show up to teach, that all goes out the window, and it feels like such a prayer or a service that you're offering up to someone else, you know. So it's
I think it's powerful. It gives you a kind of a strength, a grounding, a guide to living, you know, whether it's the, you know, the yamas and the yamas, and, you know, even things that you're taught on the teacher training about. I mean, things that I knew, but the body brushing, you know, that makes you feel different in the morning if you do that, you know, all of the kind of, you know, tongue scraping, the kriyas, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, it was amazing doing the teacher training. It's amazing teaching, and it's amazing still practicing, you know, and being on this journey. But when you did the teacher training, how many years ago was that, and how different do you think that would have been from what I did?
Well, it was near on 20 years ago, which is crazy. And there's very much, you know, similar lectures. We had to do the kriyas, body brushing. I just remember watching David live do the sutra neti, like sticking this catheter through his nose and out his mouth, and then I started retching watching it. So we still have the kriyas, and even teaching the teacher trainings nowadays, we as faculty argue about who's going to demonstrate the tongue scraping or, you know, jala neti. So the teacher training then I did in upstate New York, and when I signed up for the teacher training, I think I'd only done 2 Jivamukti classes in my life, and I was using these CDs that I'd found in a shop in Covent Garden. And the training was every other year, so I'd put the deposit down on a credit card and waited a year. And then within that year, I found out that Jivamukti Yoga London was opening, that Manise was opening that. So I knew that there was, you know, there was going to be classes to teach after that. And there was a lot of people on the teacher training, and Sharon and David, our beloved teachers, were teaching it. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. I think the biggest thing that I got from it was the sense of community. And we had a lot of people on that training, and a lot of, I'd say, big name Jivamukti teachers, Jules and Rima and Andrea and Tina, and just so many teachers on that training that are still, you know, faculty and strong Jivamukti teachers. And the sense of community was, for me, the biggest thing. I realized, you know, as a yoga teacher, I was teaching Ashtanga in London. It's quite a lone path, you know, when you're out there teaching. And then all of a sudden I built really strong friendships, and still once a week I call up Andrea calls up me, and we discuss what we are teaching and what we are chanting, and other things of life. So the sense of community has been the biggest thing, making those friendships from 20 years ago and still having those friendships. And that's why I love Tribe so much, because from mentoring and facilitating the teacher trainings, I've met so many wonderful Jivamukti teachers from many different years of trainings, and I learned so much from these teachers. And to make new friends like that is, and to feel support within a method, within a lineage-based method, is it keeps me going. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody that I've brought along to, because a lot of people know about Jivamukti, but I'm always kind of, saying to my friends, and every time I ever bring anyone to Jivamukti class, and maybe they didn't know the name, they just love it, and everybody gets it. I've never brought someone along to a class who's just gone, what was that about? And everyone feels better doing it. I mean, I think it is something you can do, from being, whatever age, and you see like a variety of very young people in the class, and to older people. It's a real kind of and a lot more men, which I think is really interesting, because because I travel a lot all over the world with work, I go into so many different kind of yoga situations, and a lot of yoga, there's much more women practicing, but in Jivamukti there's a lot of men, which is good. There's a real balance, and I like the fact that there's a lot of diversity with age and everything. And I think the main thing I say to a lot of my friends who have been struggling just in life, apart, in whatever level, if they go and do a teacher training, it just seems to kind of give you the stability, grounding, focus, and kind of like to really be at one, or try to be at one with the universe. For me, it was like, I just wanted to kind of feel this kind of being held and supported, and Jivamukti does that for me, and I'm glad it's, this is the thing that I've found that's doing that, rather than something else.
It took me a couple of years to feel really comfortable teaching it. Like I said, there's so many elements to it. But what is amazing is that there is a lot of freedom to the teaching as well, that it's not just a set sequence, and you take the interpretation of what the focus of the month is, and you're curating your soundtrack and your intention for the practice. So it took me a while. How are you finding it teaching?
I was really scared at first, even though I'm from an acting background and I've performed on stage. It is like doing a play every day. You have to have your inner kind of script, or your script, and you have to be authentic. You have to talk the talk. You don't want to be some kind of yogi cliche. That was the pressure for me, to kind of really be authentic and to kind of feel it from my heart. And so there are moments where I feel like it's flowing, I feel great, and then you have a meltdown, and you've probably heard me like, I can't do this, I can't do this. But actually, when you really feel like you're connecting, then and you have something to say, and you make people feel, as long as you make people feel better and different, then that's a good thing. I do know that I knew I had these retreats this year, and it was a certain type of yoga that it was Jivamukti inspired, because we did the Magic 6, and but I also knew people were not very well, so I had to kind of have a kind of a slightly gentler level to what you would teach. And I know now I've done this, you've told me that I have to get to the nitty-gritty and start really kind of engaging in spiritual warrior, and this weekend looking at 6 and 7, which I hadn't done since I did my teacher training, was that just overwhelmed me. I had a meltdown looking at 6 and 7 again, and just thinking I hadn't practiced it since then. So
you should be practicing it 3 times a day, Sadie.
No, I know. I haven't had time with all the other stuff, and I've been practicing your with different type of, your kind of practice, and I've been doing my practice, and I've also had a slip disc, so I've had a back problem for 30 years. That's another reason why I've done yoga, because obviously it's helped with my back, but it also means there's a lot of exercises I can't do. And that's a kind of a real vanity thing, because you kind of feel like I want to be able to do lots of back bends and acrobatics. I was a gymnast as a kid, and you have to let go of that feeling of like, I can't compete with someone who's 20 or 30 who's a dancer who's good at gymnastics. It is about, for me, it's about the mind stuff. So
you want to be able to practice in another 20 years' time.
Yeah.
So how do we modify the practice as we get older? Because body changes.
And you have to let go of the kind of, of the things that you thought you could do before that you can't now. I have a lot of friends I've had already having hip replacements, and I don't want to be riddled with injuries, so I know I have to be gentle.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm getting the peace of mind and my body's serving me, and
Also being able to assist people, I mean, like being really aware of how we're using our bodies to support the fact that we might be teaching 2 classes or 3 classes a day or whatever. It can be quite tough. So part of the practice is self-care and maintenance and thinking long term, with the practice.
I think it's about showing up, engaging, and keep going with if you're interested in the philosophy as well, just adding more and more. I have on Audible Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras. I have it on repeat. It's just going through my head the whole time. I mean both. I've just I'm completely clued into it, immersed the whole time. And I can't believe it took me this long to discover those books, but obviously the reading list for Jivamukti, and that was another thing, because when I said yes to the teach training, I was like, oh, I'm starting in a few weeks, and then there was 15 books I had to read. I said, this is absolutely impossible. And a lot of people that who were doing the teach training had probably been prepping to do it for about a year before, and read those books. But I just kind of threw myself into it, and and it's continuous. I'm never going to stop learning and being part of it. And next year coming back and doing hopefully a week or 2 again with the teach training, just to brush up and commit to it more, and get more of a kind of now my back's getting better, a bit more of a dynamic practice. But you're going to teach me today some modifications.
Yes, which is a great thing. And it was good for me to kind of have a think about what the practice is like and how to modify. And I just think also as teachers, I have learned so much from being injured myself. I have learned so much from working with many different disabilities, and making sure that the practice is open for everyone. And I think that's the most important thing, actually, when people come to class, is that they feel welcomed, and even though that there is, I have to say my classes are pretty dynamic, but there's something for everyone there. And it's been good to investigate what we should do together with these practices.
Because also, apart from injury, and a lot of people who do practice yoga are very, very hypermobile, which can work to some degrees with certain asanas, but like I've got hypermobile ankles, which means that it's very hard to balance, the arms go the wrong, everything's hypermobile. So, if you don't get that kind of core strength as you're kind of, right from the beginning, it can then be problematic later on. So I'm sure that's one of the reasons why I've had a lot of back injuries, because of the hypermobility.
Yeah.
And
actually, I've noticed as I've got older, with what I'm teaching and what I'm practicing, I do a lot more squats and a lot more strength and stability work. As I was a dancer and was, just didn't feel any hamstringness, and which I do now, which is a good thing because I feel it. But I just find that the strength work is what's going to keep me standing strong as I get older on this path.
Absolutely. So you've taught all over the world, haven't you? You've been kind of,
yes.
I mean, how's that teaching
Mongolia
all over
and Japan and Iceland and here, there, and everywhere. I love it. And again, like you're saying, that wherever you go in the world, there's a Jivamukti teacher. It's funny because it's a really small community, but it reaches wide with Jivamukti. So we have centres here, there, and everywhere. More centres are opening this year, and there's a consistency to having that focus of the month. Wherever you go, you feel very safe in the hands of the Jivamukti teacher. And for me, have felt completely welcomed and at home in the places that I have taught. And it's such a privilege. I mean, to be able to travel and to see the world with teaching yoga is something that I feel very blessed with. And because I did the training in New York and I met so many international teachers. I mean, it's very international training. It's helpful to be able to travel.
With the Jivamukti Digital, which is an amazing platform, I was showing a friend of mine who does your classes it yesterday. She was like, oh my God, this is actually unbelievable. Like, why did you not tell me about this? The Jivamukti digital platform is pretty spectacular. There's loads going on there. And we're going to be doing something today for it. Tell me a bit about why it's so good.
So I think what's great about the platform is that there's so many different length classes for people like your friend who has never experienced Jivamukti. There's different levels, and there's different styles, even though it's Jivamukti, we've got the Restore and Renew. So there's something there for everyone. But actually, it's a really good resource for teachers, especially if you're going to do the teacher training. There's different versions of Spiritual Warrior, different languages of Spiritual Warrior. We're adding more class 6 and 7 for those of you that like side leg lifts. We have different people teaching that. And there's lectures, there's anatomy, there is assist tutorials. So it's a really good resource for teachers, not just Jivamukti teachers. You know, so many people that maybe can't commit to taking the month off and come on a Jivamukti teacher training. This would be a really good resource for teaching.
Mm-hmm. How do you think the actual method of Jivamukti or the brand has changed since when you started to maybe now?
Well, that's a good question. Well, my teachers, they are amazing at what they do. I've come from Ashtanga and Iyengar background, and my favorite classes to practice are those of Sharon and David. And the essence, of course, of what they've put together is still there. But in terms of the training, I mean, to even think that they were running a center in New York, running trainings and still being able to create new classes and aha moments in classes. That's what's so amazing about their teaching. Whenever I have done a class with them, I've come out there with a completely different mindset on a situation. But on top of that, the admin and the load of putting together a 300 teacher training with the 500 hour, it was a lot for them. And as they got older, I mean, can you imagine, like the business of yoga, which is pretty crazy, it was bringing them down, you know. So I'm forever thankful to Camilla and Harry for taking the reins and making it Jivamukti Global. And so from that, you know, as a team of facilitators and friends, we look at how the training needs to move forward in terms of diversity and inclusivity and affordability. We're now doing a hybrid training for those that can't take the month off, and it's a little bit cheaper, but there's still a week's worth of the assists and so on and so forth. So we're continuously looking at the teacher training and the centres to see how we can evolve and, of course, keep up with the times. But people still say to me, I mean, even a couple of days ago, a guy that's been coming to class for quite a long time, an older gentleman, said, you know what, Jivamukti just feels like the most complete thing. I've done my Iyengar training, I've done some Ashtanga. I think I'm going to do the Jivamukti teacher training, and it still has that about it, because to be able to freely talk basic yoga philosophy, to tie that story or teaching throughout a class that's just done in a way that people are so receptive to how they treat others in the world is, I mean, it's hard to teach it, but it's such a beautiful thing, and that's what the teacher training gave me. Like I say, it took me a long time to be able to weave everything through the practice, but I don't know of any other method that can do that, you know, to give teachers that tool.
When I was talking to people, they were saying that definitely Jivamukti is one of the most thorough teacher trainings. So that was kind of interesting for me. Like I'd thrown myself right in there with one of the most, you know, thorough teacher trainings. And then I was worried. It was a bit like I felt like going to cooking school. I was like, am I going to ruin food for myself? Like, you know, if you become a chef, you're not going to really, are you going to enjoy food? And then I was like, oh, has this teacher training and being able to teach yoga going to ruin yoga, my
experience.
practice now, because now I'm just thinking the whole time and obsessing, and there's so many books to read. I've got to be able to just let go with the flow, but my mind is completely, you know, and what you're trying to do is make it seamless, make your kind of rhetoric, what you want to say and how you're going to make people feel, you know, feel organic, authentic. But at the beginning, as you say, it's going to take a long time, and that is what's the hardest thing for me, is to kind of find, you know, it's going to take, I can see, a couple of years to really, really be embedded in me as a person, where it's like if you're driving, you know, a 10-hour drive, you're not even thinking about it, you're just getting there. And that's what you kind of want yoga.
The 10,000 hour rule, yeah, for sure. It takes time, but that's why I say to new teachers is just keep it very simple. You know, get the spiritual warrior to be able to teach that within the hour is actually very difficult. And it's such a beautiful practice to teach. And, you know, Sharon Padmaji put that together because, you know, she was seeing people teach crazy stuff. And, you know, just to have a set sequence that's pretty simple, but, you know, complex to be able to put everything within that hour is a really good thing to start with as a teacher. And then you can add on Seat of Isis or Eagle's Flight or any of these small sequences from the book. Then you can start adding on, and then you'll find your flow with it. But it does come. And of course, I always say to you, you've been practicing yoga for a really long time, so it's all there. And it took me for someone to come up to me and say, oh my God, what you talked about today, it really resonated with me, because I had this feeling that who am I to talk to anyone? Like, who's going to listen to me? Who am I to give a talk? And someone said that to me, and I was like, wow, I've been of service. And just having that little bit of confidence kind of pushed me forward, because we love giving ourselves a hard time. But just keep practicing, getting to class, and then it all comes together.
It will come. And are you going to be gentle with me today in this?
I'm going to just cuddle you. I'm just going to cuddle you.
Can I just lie on the floor and just like do a few like...
I'm going to go.
As I said, I've only just started feeling like I can even do a downward facing dog.
No, and you know, this is important within, as practitioners, we have to listen to the body, and you will find through these modifications a way of teaching that is very compassionate to other people that have just slipped their disc. And, you know, you're going to teach your doggy that's just slipped her disc last night.
Now my dog slipped her disc, so yeah, she needs doggy yoga. But yeah, I think it's good as well to know these modifications, so it's preventative.
And how to use props.
Yeah, and how to use props, which, you know, if you've got like slightly short arms or something, it might be helpful.
Yeah, and sort of dealing with cues. And I think, you know, obviously with class 6 and 7 that we have from the training, if we're just listening to that, I remember when I came back from the training, I sounded like a robot, you know, inhale, exhale 1. So just to add some cues to help people that can maybe not do tiptoe fish or whatever it might be is really important. And also the understanding with a lot of these asana, you know, everyone's built differently. Some people find twists really difficult. Some people find back bends really difficult. I think understanding different body types and knowing what certain restrictions are there for certain body types, it's good to know these cues and how to use props. And we'll look at some of that today for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.